Hello and welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. Today is the 29th day of May 2024, and it means today is Democracy Day and indeed a day for celebration right here in Nigeria. So we'll be looking at a very interesting talking points across board. We'll be looking at today's Nigeria's Democracy Day. We'll also be looking at insecurity. Reps stepping down amendment seeking foreign help. We'll be looking at the House of Representatives Wednesday stepped down an amendment. So a motion moved on insecurity across the country seeking to invite foreign machineries to help fight insecurity. The amendment made by Honorable Ahmed Jahar followed a motion brought on the floor of the House on Wednesday during plenary. According to Jahar, efforts by security agencies over the years is not yielding much result, hence the need for Nigeria to engage foreign machineries to help fight insecurity across the country. So we'll be looking at the implication of that and why they have decided to step it down. We'll also be looking at the issue of the Emirate crisis as the NSCIA cautions Kano Muslims clerics, talking about the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs has advised Muslim clerics in Kano not to interfere in the ongoing crisis in the state arising from the deposition of 5 emirs. The NSCIA, through a statement issued on Wednesday by its Secretary General Salisu Shehu, said it noticed with concern contradictory statements from the State Council of Ulama, stressing that the statement can only heighten tension instead of providing solutions to the problem. So we'll be looking at that in deep retrospect. Also, we'll be taking a look at other interesting talking points making the rounds. Further, the NBA president has also condemned the conflicting court orders making the rounds. We'll be looking at that also. These and other talking points is what we'll be looking at on today's edition of the program, The Desk. My name is Anthony Momodi. Welcome into today's edition. I'm not alone. I've been joined in the live studios by Farouk Akaolisa, who is a media practitioner and also an activist, and he's a man of many caps. He's joining us in the live studios, and hopefully we'll be having also Gad Peter, who is the executive director of a Clean Foundation, joining us via Zoom all the way from Maiduguri. He'll be joining us to lend his voice to today's very interesting talking point. Farouk, I want to say thank you for joining us in the studio despite the very short notice. First of all, happy Democracy Day.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, let's see if Gad Peter has joined us via Zoom. Good evening, Gad Peter. All right, we're still expecting Gad Peter to join us via Zoom. Okay, let's begin our discourse. First of all, Nigerians have different takes as regards how well the administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done in the last 1 year. For you, how would you assess the government in the last 1 year?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure. Looking at the indicators of governance and development, we can say that the government under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has also achieved some significant milestone in terms of infrastructure, in terms of insecurity, and in terms of empowering small businesses. So we have seen several positive policies that has been rolled out under this regime, which has also benefited small businesses. And also you can see the issue of insecurity has also reduced almost barest minimum. We no longer see the cases of wanton kidnapping, the issues involving the farmer sellers crisis. All these things have actually reduced to barest minimum, unlike how it used to be. And also, but also there's some challenges as well, following the issues that has to do with fuel subsidy removal and the FX crisis. All these things are still has some negative implications on the livelihood of a common man and as well, the growth and development of businesses in Nigeria.
All right, so if you're to score him over 10, what will be the scoreline?
We can actually give the government, for me, maybe I can give them, above 5. I can give them above 5 because I know there's still a lot of, gaps to be filled. But I can give them above 5.
About 5. Okay, that's good enough. So let's begin our discourse. Let's get into the first discourse of the day, talking about the emirate tussle, which seem to have taken hold. The president of the, first of all, the fact that we're having a different issue. Let's just begin with the fact, talking about the insecurity facing the country. The House of Representatives on Wednesday did step down an motion moving for the us to get foreign machineries in order to help fight the insecurity ravaging the country. The fact that the move was even instituted in the first place, what does that tell us in terms of how serious the issue of insecurity is?
Yeah, sure. You can always expect that because security is the backbone of national development. And when people are not safe to move about, do their businesses as usual, people are always careful about, their environment because of, either being kidnapped or, fall into this kind of problems of, that can cost them their lives. So you can always have this kind of awareness and outcry. So the idea of inviting foreign experts to join the effort of the Nigerian government in tackling the insecurity challenges is not unusual. Okay, it's not unusual if you ask me, because as it is now, just like I've mentioned, insecurity is not something that you take for granted. So if the government of Nigeria has been trying in various ways to take care of this situation, and the responses perhaps, as we can see, of course, just like I've said, they're actually making progress, but a lot of gas to be filled. I don't think there's anything wrong if at this point there's these negotiations to get more foreign hands or experts to be involved in this journey.
But the fact that it was later stepped down because we had Honorable Abbas Adigun, who opposed the motion, saying it was embarrassing for Nigeria to seek help. Do you think that's enough reason for them to step it down, just because they are trying to protect Nigeria's image when we truly need help?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it's embarrassing to take that position, because just like I've mentioned, the issue of security of lives and properties are very, very important in every every democratic, whether it is a civilian rule or military rule. As long as the security of lives and properties is concerned, people can always continue to cry out loud until a solution is given. So it has nothing to do with protecting our integrity as a nation, but the issue is finding a sustainable solution to the problem that has been ravaging the country for almost a decade.
But in terms of looking at service chiefs, would you say they've done enough to warrant their continuous stay, or you think it's more than the security chiefs and the issue of state policing coming into the picture? Because the government has also said in the last 48 hours that the issue of insecurity, specifically last week, the president said the issue of insecurity is also worsened because governance at the local government is non-existent, and that's why they are pushing for the autonomy of local governments in the country.
Yes, this kind of engagement, you cannot achieve the security, the security you are looking for when there is no grassroots development. Okay, so the issue of grassroots development is very, very important, because if now people are now agitating for state police, it's simply because they want to own that solution. People want to be part of the process. People want this leadership in terms of providing national security at the grassroots level. So the moment you see that lives and livelihood are beginning to improve at the grassroots level, it will begin to reduce this menace. So if eventually they are now calling for a state police and looking for engagement of rural communities in this quest, I think it's something that needs to be considered.
Okay, let's go for a very quick break. When we return from this break, the conversation will continue as we step into the emirate crisis rocking Kano State, as the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs is also sharing its own thoughts as regards what's playing out in Kano, and urging Muslim clerics to be cautious in their utterances as regards what's playing out in Kano. That will be after this break. Stay with us. right, welcome back from the break. We're still looking at silent issues making the rounds in Nigeria, and I've got in the studio the president of Culture and Peace Foundation in the person of Farouk Akaolisa, who is joining me making his debut on the program, The Desk, and we're looking at silent issues making the rounds. Let's delve into Kano State, where the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs has advised Muslim clerics in Kano not to interfere in the ongoing crisis in the state arising from the deposition of 5 emirs. Let's look at this issue. I know you're one of the Muslim ummahs, like they say, or faithfuls. Let's look at what's playing out in Kano. Does this rub off on the people of Kano and the Muslim faith, seeing 2 brothers at war over, kingship or emirship of Kano? And who would you put this blame on? Would you say the state government who first of all deposed Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, in a very controversial way, or Abba Yusuf, who is trying to right the wrongs, so to say?
Okay, the issue that has involved, or the issue that has erupted in Kano for over a couple of days now, involving the leader Sanusi Emel and the Emirate Council. If we should flash back, from the starting point of this entire episode, when Sanusi Lamido was deposed in a very embarrassing manner, which also being having served at the central bank as former governor, and all the leadership position he has held in the past, he also has an integrity to protect, right? And also, he has his own followers, people that actually believes in him. So many people were not happy with the way that issue happened. But then, as a man of integrity, I believe he has a way of trying to absorb the situation. Not until recent time, begin to see in the news that he has been restated back, and he now begin to create this type of issues involving the Emirate Council. So I think that it's not a time to start apportioning blame now to anyone, because you can always expect this kind of issue to come up. But the most important thing is finding a solution, a common ground to resolve the issue. Because from the interviews that we have had with people of Kano, they said that the position of Sanusi Lamido is the position that has been there in Kano for a very long time. Okay, that this leadership is based on a traditional appointments, traditional settings, inheritance, not until the former governor of Kano State, Ganduje, came and removed him and created these Emirate Councils. So if eventually the State Assembly is now coming up with a new law and all of these things, it's something that the stakeholders in the state need to carefully look at it without necessarily creating tensions or allowing opposing parties or opposing figures begin to create narratives that incite one against the other.
Well, would you say you're impressed with what the National Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs is saying? They're just coming out to say they're warning the clerics to be careful with their utterances, saying the clerics are further instigating the crisis. One would have expected a more, very clear stand to say, okay, this is who we're supporting. This person is doing the wrong thing, in order to quell the crisis once and for all, rather than also technically sit on the fence by telling the clerics not to take sides, but not coming out to say, okay, our tradition says this, and this is where to go based on Islamic, teachings or tenets.
Yeah, sure, I got that point. Okay, but also before the Supreme Council can come out boldly to, kind of put a judgment to this, because what you're trying to expect for them to put a judgment that this person is right and this person is wrong.
Yes, because as the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, they should be able to an extent, say, okay, our tradition, our tenet of Islam says X, Y, Z, so let's stick with this person.
Yes, of course, they have the right or the power to do so, but I think they're also taking their time looking at the fact that I think the matter is already in court. So, when matter is in court like that, it's not expected to comment over it until due investigations and a proper consensus is reached. So I think the Supreme Council too, they're also taking their time not to turn it into like a religious issue, since it's a traditional issue. So that's why
it's religious already, technically, because at least the religion is strictly Islam. So it's not like Islam versus any other religion. strictly Islam. So doesn't that put the Islam now in disrepute to see two brothers fighting for a traditional stool where, and we expected that the clerics should be the ones, so if nobody else can resolve it, if Sahad Abubakar, the Sultan of Sokoto, can't come in to wade into the crisis, the clerics should be able to wade into the crisis.
Yeah, so there are so many sides to this. Of course, even though not everything is actually made known, because as we believe that more and more consultations are being done as we speak, right? So I believe the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, even though they are going to come up to make a statement in regards to this, perhaps it's going to take some time for them to be able to conduct all the necessary consultations they need to do. But at the moment, I believe they're only taking their time before they can actually issue like an ultimatum about this matter.
Okay, we've got the NBA president in the person of Kabir making some statement as regards Yakubu Kio saying the judiciary is not helping matters with the conflicting rulings we've gotten over time. One saying remain on status quo, others is saying. Does this tell us how biased and how compromised the Nigerian judiciary is, especially even when it comes to things that have to do with the traditional institution? We are seeing conflicting, rulings. What does this tell us?
Yes, because we need to run this country with, from an unbiased standpoint, which is, fair and justice, and the judiciary are placed at the forefront of implementing this justice. So I do not, from own individual perspective, I do not see why judiciary can be having a compromise positions on these kind of issues, because this is not the first time we see this kind of thing happen. Even in recent times, we see a case involving the former governor of Yahya Bello, where the judiciary, a certain law court, magistrate court, we issue a statement on his arrest, and another court will come up to say different things. So I think it's something that the federal government will begin to look critically on the state of our judicial system, and how, because look, you need to have a strong democratic system that's actually operational, and the judicial system are the ones to pilot this if we're going to make a headway.
All right, we've gotten Yakubu, that's the NBA chairman, saying that he's calling for probe into the judges who gave this conflicting ruling, saying the NJC should look into it, and so that the culprits, the judges who have been found wanting, should be sanctioned. Do you see this playing out? Do you think the NJC is going to be bold enough to take a stand and discipline the erring judges who made these rulings? Yeah,
because we live in a trial times in the history of Nigeria where almost everything is tested, right? Ranging from our security, ranging from our criminal justice system, ranging from everything you can think of right now. So if it happens that way, I think it's also a test on the NBA to actually say, look, we are taking this position so that it can serve as a deterrent. If anybody, any judge is found, wanting on this type of issues, he should be meant to, face the right consequences in order not to serve as a deterrent to other lawmakers, to have a strong position, so we can have an equitable system that actually works for interest of justice, for the interest of justice, not for individual interest of justice. Yeah.
All right. We're still looking at the Emirate tussle playing out in Kano State, and we also know that a lot of stories have come out of Kano recently with the state government, the Kano state government has banned any public gatherings intended to protest within the state. This was contained in a statement by the governor's spokesperson, Sanusi Tofa. On Wednesday, the government urged all citizens of the state to go about their normal activities as the state retains its tranquility. Earlier, the Federal High Court in Kano ordered the eviction of Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II from the Kofa Kudu Palace, while a state high court restrained the police and other security agencies from carrying out the eviction order. The federal court on Tuesday ordered the police to ensure all rights and privileges due to the 15th Emir of Kano, Aminu Bayero, be given to him as the rightful Emir of Kano. The presiding judge, Justice S.A. Amo Beda, who gave the ex parte order, stated that the order was made in the interest of justice and maintenance of peace in Kano. How laughable do you see this? One is saying evict the 16th emir, which is Muhammadu Sanusi, and the other one is saying remove the latter from the palace. But the ban on protests, is this the best solution the state can offer for now? And how long do you think this would hold?
Yeah, I think the leaders in the states, and although also with other consultations, they also doing, because I believe in the things that has to do with traditional leadership is a chain. It is historical. You know, the stakeholders involved need to, you know, go back to the drawing board and be willing to follow these things in a very much transparent way. Because if you are going to bring justice, let's say two people are fighting, one person have to present one side of the story, the other person have to then you now look at the history, and look at the documentations and the record you have, and be able to meet out justice. So they cannot reach to that point of justice if they're not being transparent about their process. So I think that at this point we need to encourage more dialogue, more consultation, and to see how they can resolve the conflicts amicably without necessarily, protest is not actually the best way to go about it, because
placing a ban on the protest by the government.
Yeah, placing a ban on the protest actually, of course, I think it is encouraging, because there's no need to, it doesn't call for protest at this stage. I'm quite optimistic that these things can also be resolved with dialogue and consultations with other traditional leaders.
But if we look at, on the hindsight, how Sanusi was removed, would you say it was a fair deal and a fair way to depose Sanusi? Because the issue was that the government of that time, Abdullah Ganduje, had issues with his comments as regards the girl child.
Yeah, I think also it also.
Do we rather have a traditional ruler who wouldn't speak out on behalf of his subjects to a traditional ruler who's going to just say yes to everything?
Yeah, you know, because perhaps Kano State, I'm not from there, but I know perhaps from, you know, interactions that I've had with people from Kano, they believe they operate exceptionally in terms of when it comes to traditional leadership. So they believe they have values, they have their own principles, they have values to protect. So some of the narratives then was like the MS Sanusi was, you know, speaking against the norms, you know, of the tradition. He's speaking against the norms by, you know, condemning some things and stuff like that. But the fact is that as a learned leader who happens to have the privilege to assume a traditional position, you cannot take away that fact that Sanusi will also, even once in a while, you know, try to speak on this type of issues that has to do with, you know, educating the girl child and, you know, development issues that borders around education and livelihood of their own people. But I don't know how they actually misinterpret. Let me use that word. If they misinterpret his concerns or misinterpret his approach towards that particular topic before they. But generally, you can say that the reactions towards him, everybody can say that it is quite unfair in terms of the manner in which he was, you know, removed and kind of ostracized him out of the community. He was taken to Lafayette or some other places. And so I think it's because somebody of his repute also is not supposed to be treated that way, even if there are some issues. I believe consultations, dialogue, and also perhaps, you know, roundtable discussions with the inner caucus of the Emirates can be able to adjust some of the lapses instead of treating him the way he was done.
All right, we're still talking about silent issues making the rounds in Nigeria. Let's move on to the next talking point. We have the Okwama killings. That's where we're heading next, Delta State, where a group kicks against a resettlement plan. A group known as the Concerned Ijaw Citizens has kicked against the Delta State government plan to embark on a reconstruction of the vandalized public structures such as schools and healthcare centers in the troubled Okwama community in Ughelli South local government area of Delta State. This was contained in a statement signed by the coordinator, Sage manager, copies of which were made available to journalists in Warri on Wednesday. According to the group, the Delta State government should have said it should have invited the neighboring Okoloba people and their leaders to give them a listening ear and let them bear their heart on their challenges, pains, and fears before embarking on any rehabilitation agenda for the displaced Okwama indigents. It will be recalled that the Okwama community was vandalized by the Nigerian military troops in retaliation for the March 14, 2024 killings of 17 army officers and soldiers, and said to be on a peace mission over the Okwama-Okoloba crisis. Consequently, displaced Okwama indigents and farmers fled for safety into the creeks until recently, when the military pulled out its troops from the community, while the government also urged them to return and rebuild the ruins of their ancestral homes. Let's look at the issue of Okwama killings. Yes, it was a very sad commentary. 17 Nigerians soldiers were killed. It's still wrapped in mystery how the military officers were killed easily, and the fact that they were said to have gone on a peace mission, which it's a lot of public affairs analysts have doubted the true genuinity of that statement, because they looked at the fact that 17 senior soldiers, they had captains and lieutenants in that team, and it was unusual for the military to just go into a community where they know there's conflict without any form of protection. Or let's look at now the reconstruction being planned by the government. Do you think this is another strategic or subtle way of removing these people from their ancestral homes to other places besides maybe probably to please the military, to ensure that the military take hold of that community?
You know, this issue is actually a very big situation we have, which is a sad one, because we must condemn this act of losing 17 gallant soldiers who has gone on a peace mission. When we talk about the issues of violent extremism, is something that government must, at all levels, begin to look at various ways they can begin to curb this, cushion the effect of this extremism, because all these things are driven by ideologies, and these ideologies, if not prevented or curb, to the barest minimum, you will continue to have this type of situation. But what we are not sure yet is what could actually lead to such mass killing of soldiers, which these are people we know they are very, very intelligent in terms of their coordination, in terms of their planning, in terms of their whatever they do, they plan ahead, and they have this intelligence gathering. So for these local criminals, to succeed in carrying this type of acts is also questioning, perhaps, I believe the investigation is.
Do you think there's a sabotage, and do you think the military is not completely honest with what they are saying? Because this seems to suggest that we know that Okwama community is an oil. I think there's natural resources there which of interest to the military also. That was why they came into that community. Do you think that's why they came unguarded? And even if they had come for a peace mission, would you come for a peace mission not being armed as a military, knowing fully where there was crisis, where two communities, there were death toll already between those two communities? Doesn't it feel strange that there's something missing in all the commentaries the military have provided as information?
Yes, because even though we might feel even though some analysts may have some challenge accepting all the facts or evidence has been provided by the Nigerian military, but then what we don't have for sure is an evidence to say what they are saying is untrue. Okay, because we know even when they are fighting the wars against Boko Haram, there's a lot of narratives around this, a lot of conspiracy that the military are compromised and all of those things. But the military, in their own best way, they're only trying to serve the people the best way they can. So, but if this type of incidents happen, you are not quick to make a conclusion because you're not there. You don't know. But what I can agree with you, there's always an interest in everything that happens. Perhaps because we're not talking about the mineral resources in that the community, it could be another thing, because we see what has happened in Zamfara State, yes, and how a lot of spillover effects of people trying to take hold of illegal mining and stuff like that. So if then this could also be one of the situations we have.
Will you support the resettlement like the government is trying to propose, and the people are saying before there's any form of resettlement or restructuring or building of structures, you're supposed to call the two ethnic groups who had this conflict to express their pains. Because now it looks at more attention is given to Okwama while Okoloba is left out of the picture. But the Okoloba people were the people who called the military in to, as a way of taking revenge on the Okwama people.
Yes, because this time around, even governments are expected to exercise some level of conflict resolution skills, mediation processes that is actually built on fairness and equity.
But was it going to happen when the civil society organizations were not brought in by the military? The military was the judge and the jury in its case. Doesn't that already smack of prejudice already?
Yeah, because now we are now talking about the death of 6 soldiers, and sometimes the military can actually be aggressive in their process, especially when the death of their gallant officers are involved.